All right, Lorenzo Alexander is here for a special off-season edition of The Lowdown. And, Zoe, I don't know who we've talked to you more about, but I have to feel like Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins are pretty high on the list. And then, a year ago, they don't pick up Isaiah Simmons' fifth-year option, and he's gone before the season even starts. Zaven Collins is not getting his fifth-year option picked up. I see this as a little bit different. Like when Isaiah didn't get his, it was like Isaiah's gone.
Yeah, it's different. I think it is because you don't know what Zaven is right now, right? And from the standpoint of came in, played middle linebacker. I thought he was growing there. Then you move him to outside backer. He never done it. You're going to have struggles and trying to figure out who he is and what he's doing. Has some other young guys that you actually drafted, right? Because Zaven is not this regime's guy.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to figure some things out as far as who are you going to be based on what we think you do best for this football team. And being around Zaven just a little bit, knowing how smart he is, how much he cares about this game, his type of work ethic, I will imagine that he's going to come out and have some success this year, right? He has some time under him now, some experience, and so if he's back out there at outside backer, I think he'll take a couple of steps forward as far as being more productive as a pass rusher, which is hard to do if you've never done it before. It's hard enough to do in the league when you've done it your entire life.
Yeah.
But now to ask a dude, just because, you're big, strong, and long doesn't necessarily equate to production. You have to learn what that looks like and how you play. And so I think he's going to take a couple of steps forward. And with that, right, you don't necessarily want to be tied to a guy that's not necessarily your guy and you're not sure of who he's going to be. Even though you may be betting on him from a business perspective, you always got a hedge like, I'm not sure, right? Especially when you have other guys that you potentially may like and may be a little bit cheaper if he doesn't do what you think he can or is capable of doing.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider moving him back inside? And if so, what would be the challenges for him if that were the case?
Well, I think things would play a lot better for him if they moved him back off the ball. Obviously, because of the experience, he knows it. I think his hands would be better because that's his biggest thing when he's off the ball was his lack of hand placement, always shouldering stuff, not coming down, striking things in the run game. Obviously, he's a bigger body too, and so in relating to routes, but he always did that well. His biggest thing was just not being able to get off of stuff. But when you play D-line, you have to use your hands.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, every play. If you don't use them, you're not going to be productive at all. So I think it actually would help him because then the game would actually slow down because you have that extra half a second for the line before they climb up on you versus the line of scrimmage, they on you right now. So it probably would be productive for him. I know it helped me, especially when you start playing other positions, and he's very intelligent. Oh, this is how I fit. This is what I can do. I can cheat a little bit here, or this is that guy's responsibility, on top of just the technique stuff that I think he picked up from playing down in the trenches.
There's still a way, though, where this works out. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's still a way where this works out where he's still on the Cardinals past this year, though, don't you think? Because with Isaiah, it felt like either he was going to be too good and leave, or he wasn't going to be good enough and they were going to get rid of him. It seems like there's more of a runway for Zaven to land on where he's still here.
Yes, and I think that's because of all the intangibles I just mentioned, right? As far as leadership and work ethic. I don't think Isaiah was ever seen like that guy in that locker room compared to Zaven and how he approaches it as a professional. And he's a guy that you want around your football team. So, he could maybe not, become this, top-tier guy outside backer, but be a solid blue-collar. I can use him in some teams and do some other things, put him on the edge, and you sign him back. Now, it may not be what he wants, but they definitely would offer based on who he is and what he's capable of doing.
For me, Zoe, I think that Kaiser White is a guy that could be moved to the weak side inside linebacker. If, in fact, they did that, would he have any issues whatsoever if he were still making the calls?
No, and I don't. And maybe because I have a different pathway. So when you're Mike and you get pushed over and now you're not making the calls, I'm still on the. My perspective is I'm still on the field, and now I'm not responsible for making calls. I can just be a assist to Mike.
Right.
It just makes you play faster and better. So and he's probably more athletic than Zaven. So to your point, what you was talking about earlier, moving Zaven, pushing Kaiser over, right? He's going to be more of the cover guy. And that is a pretty good tandem, especially when you think the IQ between both those players. It could work out based on the guys that they drafted and brought in.
What's interesting is even right now with Mack Wilson Sr. as the guy that they've got lined up, right, alongside him, he's actually bigger than Kaiser White is. He's actually bigger, got a bigger butt, ready to go. That type of thing, right? That makes me big. Stop it,
you
Mel.
knew it. You walked right into that.
I understand that.
Play it, I was going to play.
He's got a little more girth than Kaiser does, and Kaiser is so good in regard to coverage. So I was just wondering how that dynamic might actually work, because I really love Mack Wilson, the kid they got from New England.
Okay.
Really like this guy, and I could see him possibly being the Mike and Kaiser moving over, being that weak side inside.
Yeah, that makes sense, because typically your Mike, when you're in some form of man, is normally your rat player, right? I don't necessarily have a responsibility unless I'm calling someone off, and you typically want your wheel linebacker who's going to be on tight ends or running backs, right, to be that more athletic speed guy that's used to playing a little bit more in space.
Yeah. What do you – I know this is a kind of a big question, but just with what they've done with the defense this offseason, this is really our first chance to get to talk to you about it in person, where they have added some guys through free agency. They added 6 guys through the draft. Just the process that that Monty's going through getting his guys in here, like you said. You know, Zaven's not necessarily one of them. It doesn't mean he's gone, but now Monty's brought in a bunch of his own guys too.
Yeah, you start putting your fingerprint on this football team, right? You're identifying guys and filling gaps based on the needs you have, but also guys that fit the mold that you have, right? Before, there was a couple of guys here and there. It's like, oh, we got to use you, but I'd rather not, but we have to.
Yeah.
Now when you have another year, you're able to accumulate some extra draft picks, bring some guys in. They've seen who you are, how hard this football team played last year. That was a little bit undermanned, right? That's probably some of their selling points. Hey, man, we just need a guy like you to take us to that next level. You see guys are in here working hard. You see the type of culture we're building. We need you to be a part of it. So you get a couple of guys like that, obviously the draft, and then you start seeing this team not only playing hard, but making the critical plays they need in order to win games, right? Because you playing hard is just, that's a given. Right?
Yeah.
Now we need to start making these plays to help give Kyler an extra series or two out there on offense, possession or two, or maybe us being the game changer, take a pick 6 or whatever that, strip sack, fumble, all those things. And that comes with adding better talent guys that are also great character beings, right, as far as that culture that you're building.
So where do you think they're going to play Darius Robinson the most this year? Because they could move him all up and down the line, and how distracting would that be to him? How would you start with Darius Robinson?
Well, he's a big body. Where did he primarily play in college? Where was he primarily lined up at?
Primarily as a 5 technique.
Okay. So you start there, right, where he's comfortable, and then you move him once he starts understanding, I think, the scheme from his fundamental position. Because even moving from a 5, where sometimes you just are lined up on a tackle and there's nobody outside of you, or maybe it's a smaller body like a tight end, but when you go to move down to that 3 technique or even a 1 technique, especially on rundowns, because I know he's a big body, can handle it, you get double teams, 2 big bodies, 2 big guard, a guard in the center, right? A guard and a tackle. And it happens a little bit quicker than it does on the edge. You don't have that much room for error because you got 2 guys on you pretty quickly. And so I would start, moving outside and come in and, and then sprinkle some stuff in for him that way. Because there are little nuances that occur a little differently just because you move one gap in. I used to have to go against Big Gerard and Leonard Davis back in the day. That's the center / guard. So both of those dudes was like north of 350.
I was going to say Leonard Davis,
right?
he's small, right?
Davis small, man.
Right, and then if you move outside, so now I got to handle 2 guys. I saw guys take these dudes on, great, perfect technique, and they still moving down 10 yards down the field. Versus if I'm in a 5 technique, maybe I just got to worry about 1 guy, right? And I just strike him and hold my gap. I don't have to worry about nobody on my hip.
Right.
So that is going to be the difference. Obviously, it's rarely you're going to see linemen that big to transition to NFL, but just to kind of highlight what's the difference in playing a 5 and then moving inside. Even though it looks the same, it's slightly different based on the angle of the blocks that you receive.
Thanks for watching Wolf and Luke. Tap to see more and click the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.